The title of this talk is Passkeys Have Problems, but so will you if you ignore them. Before we get into it, let me talk a little bit about me. This is my first Rails World talk, so maybe you don't know me. I'm Jason Meller. I have been doing cybersecurity ever since I can remember. I say I'm mostly reformed script kiddie, really good at pretending I'm still a good person, but under the covers, I'm still constantly thinking about how can I hack into all of these different Rails apps that are around me. I've been building Rails apps for cybersecurity experts ever since I started my professional career. That was around the Rails 3 timeframe in 2010. I built my first successful startup on Ruby on Rails, a company called Collide. We were recently acquired by 1Password, and now I'm the VP of engineering over there. And a lot of you know 1Password mentioned that we are part of the Rails Foundation. We have a ton of capabilities to give to developers. If you remember last year's at DHH's talk at Rails World, he talked about the new Kamal 2. We have a 1Password adapter for that. We allow you to store more than just passwords. We store your SSH keys, env variables, tons of cool stuff, and we allow you to just kind of directly integrate with all that tooling. So if you haven't had a chance to check out 1Password from a developer perspective, I ask you to take a look, because a lot has changed in the last 20 years since it's been a product that's been available. I was also the founder and CEO of Collide. Collide was a Ruby on Rails app, still exists today within 1Password. It's called Collide by 1Password. And it is a security app for devices. Instead of locking down devices, we actually ask users to fix problems. And if you don't listen to us, we just don't let you into your apps anymore. And then we say, hey, can you please encrypt these unencrypted SSH keys? Or hey, there's a production database sitting in your downloads folder. Can you take care of that pretty please before we let you into the RDS console again? So we let you do those things, and then boom, we let you in. And that's the premise of our product. I think about auth all the time. So when I saw this blog post go out shortly after we became a Rails Foundation member, I was like, I need to have a quick talk with all my brethren at Rails World. Passwords have problems, but passkeys have more. This is DHH's signal to our community that their attempt at putting in passkeys into Campfire just didn't work. I was actually talking with DHH just before this talk, and they had actually fully implemented passkeys as a first-class authentication citizen, but failed to actually get the user experience where it needed to be, and then they actually had to rip it out. They talked about this experience in this blog post, and this was shared all over the place, shared very broadly internally at 1Password. And I think a lot of folks saw this and said to ourselves, you know what, let's wait a couple years for passkeys to get a little bit better before we decide to take a look. So the purpose of this talk today is to educate everybody on really what the better implementation of passkeys looks like, because this was really trying to come from a perspective of getting us all the way to the end game of completely removing passwords, where there is so much area in between not dealing with passkeys at all and getting to the end state of totally removing passwords from your workflow. We're going to talk about what that end state looks like. And we're going to start with talking about the types of attacks that bad actors can actually do to your applications today. So before I get into that, let's just do a quick poll of the room. How many people here have at least one passkey that they're using? All right, that's pretty good. That was 70, 80% of the room. How many folks here work on a Ruby on Rails app that has any authentication at all, just auth? All right, keep your hands up, keep them up, keep them up. Put your hands down if you don't have any MFA at all. Okay? Put your hands down if you don't, or no, put your hands down if you don't support passkeys. All right, now put your hands down if you have gotten rid of passwords entirely. All right, I think we're down to 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4. So this is the point here, is if you saw around the room, most of us have auth, most of us have MFA, many of us haven't even offered passkeys as an MFA option for our users. And for those that have, there's even a bigger fall off for the folks that have only offering them as the sole way of actually authenticating, which is not a goal that we're going to have for this talk. Our goal today is to get all the people who raise their hand that say they have MFA to add passkeys to their existing flow state as an option for their end users. And we want to do that goal because there's a lot of attacks out there that, hey guys, can you click that off? Thanks. So this is why we're going to talk about passkeys. September 16th, 2022, Uber was breached. If you worked at Uber, you saw a Slack notification just like the one that you just saw. And when you clicked on it, you saw this exact message. This teenage hacker was able to completely infiltrate the Uber backend infrastructure. And when he did that, he posted this message. This is exactly what it looked like. These are the real emojis, by the way, in the counts underneath them. And it was a terrifying moment. It immediately leaked to the press, and it became the biggest headline of that month in the cybersecurity news. So how did this hack work? Number one, the hacker started by buying stolen credentials from about an Uber employee on the dark web. So an Uber employee's device likely got hacked. They were able to exfiltrate some of the passwords and credentials off of that. And then you can go on the dark web and you can buy a bunch of these things. You can buy passwords. You can often buy existing cookies and sessions. These are things that, for really large companies like Uber, they're expensive, but they're worth it. And he leveraged those credentials to connect to Uber's VPN. And he got stuck. He couldn't sign in all the way because he was stopped by the multi-factor authentication. They're actually using a company called Duo Push. Then the hacker did something, and then they got into the VPN. Once they're into the VPN, there was all sorts of like PowerShell scripts and things like that that had hard-coded secrets in them, able to pivot to that to be able to kind of pull down production secrets, and then got into all the systems that he mentions in his message. So what is this? Step 3, what did they do? Well, it was really just basic social engineering. It's actually quite simple. Step 1 of the social engineering is the employee needs to have a phone, like this one, an iPhone. Next step is using the credentials that you already have for them, you flood them with notifications to sign in. And most of these MFA apps allow you to send as many as you want. This is incredibly annoying to the target. They are going to be at dinner, they don't understand what's going on, so they're going to start looking at their phone and they're going to look for what's going on. Before they get too far into Slack, you're going to want to go to something like WhatsApp or some other public social media channel and send them a message that looks like this. Hey, it's me, John, from IT. You're getting spam from Duo, we know, because we're IT, and it's going to be going, it's in the loop, we can't fix it. It goes away if you just approve one of them. So just go do that, and it's going to stop. And so you go, oh, okay, like it's clear that you must be from IT, so how else did you know that I was getting this infinite loop? So I'm going to approve one of these, and you go, great, you stop, and then you kind of like walk away and think everything's good. The attacker just got access to the VPN, and then they executed the rest of their attack. So this is how simple it is. I mean, it's so simple, it almost reminds me of Ruby on Rails. Like, it's almost trivial to defeat this. And just like Ruby on Rails, the first question we all have to ask ourselves is, does this attack scale? This attack was very successful for a really, really large target by Uber. But imagine running this at scale to thousands or tens of thousands of companies. There's aspects of it that required so much human intervention that they may not work. The hack is expensive, you require that human operator, and you're definitely at high risk for detection, right? You're actually interacting with an employee. If that interaction had gone wrong, the hack wouldn't have worked, they would have revealed themselves. And MFA is really cheap and it's ubiquitous. We have it mostly implemented in all of our apps. So it's kind of a one-sided situation here. So how do we get it to scale? Really easy. We're going to use what's called an authentication experience reverse proxy. And this is malware that you all in this room could write in Ruby on Rails today. Let me show you how it works. So we have two silhouettes up there. The left is your laptop, you're the victim, and the right is cloud infrastructure that the attacker owns. This is actually often infrastructure that they've compromised from other victims, but it's stuff that's in effectively their cloud. So it all starts out with a really cleverly designed phishing link. So the goal of this phishing message is to induce panic. It's often asking you to do something really quickly. Your service is about to get shut off. Something that you rely on is going to go away unless you do a thing really, really fast. So you click on the phishing link, which will take you to a credential stealing website that's designed to look identical to the application that you're expecting. So you're going there, you're not really paying full attention, you're in this panic state, you're probably on your phone, you tap the fields, not autofilling the password, so you go into your password manager and kind of paste them in. And then you click sign in. Soon as you submit the creds, the attacker is attempting to establish a real session as you on the real website. They're doing this from their infrastructure, either that's their computer or cloud-based infrastructure. Because these credentials are correct, they're now going to get an MFA prompt. And what this reverse auth experience proxy does is it detects exactly what type of authentication you normally have to do and sort of just mirrors it back to the actual victim. So they're used to this, right? Okay, I'm signing into this application. It's asking me to put in my one-time password. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to type it in. And then as soon as you click submit on that, that goes directly to the attacker who can put it into the real MFA. And then from there, that's all they need effectively to get a session cookie. Now, what happens to you? Well, you're not actually signing in. So what typically happens is the site says like there was an error has occurred or something like that. The goal here now is to buy time because it's only going to take you, especially if you're technical, 2 or 3 minutes to realize what just happened, which is you got phished. So the key to this whole attack is the subsequent automation that happens afterwards. They already know exactly what they're going to do once they obtain access to the system, and they're going to try to get that mission complete within the first 2 to 3 minutes of them establishing access to a valid session. And by the time you figure it out, it's already too late. So this is a great theoretical attack, but this is exactly the type of attack that's being run at scale now. This is called real-time phishing. It is an attack that's been around for years, but is now made viable with some advances that we're going to talk about. And one of the most famous examples of this was earlier this year with Troy Hunt. If you don't know Troy Hunt, he runs the website Have I Been Pwned? It's a great website. You can put in your email, and it'll tell you all the websites that email appears on that have been compromised. And it also does it for passwords as well, and it's a great service. He's a dude that definitely knows how to spot a phishing scam, but he got tripped up on one of these. So in his case, it was MailChimp, and he makes a lot of his money through his newsletter. So he got a message that said, hey, your sending privilege is about to be restricted. We're going to delete your account. And he was on a plane, and he was sort of panicking. He was going through it. And the important part of this was there was nothing that told him anything was wrong, right? He was looking at the sender address in iOS, which is truncated, so he didn't notice that was forged. He went to the website, which was like mailchimp-sso.com, and he just wasn't seeing that. That got truncated in Safari, and then he just went for it, and he signed in. As soon as he completed the attack, the automated script did the following. It actually generated persistence with API keys. So it went in and immediately started leveraging that session to generate API keys. And then those API keys were used to immediately exfiltrate all the valuable data. In this case, email addresses, so that they could actually perpetuate this attack on other individuals. Often these folks will also, if you have a mail sending capability, they'll send their phishing email using your mailing service to other folks as well. And they're doing this in a matter of 1 to 2 minutes. By the time that Cloudflare had noticed that this attack was happening and blocked the site, it was already too late. Numerous people were already attacked by this campaign, and as a result, were fully compromised, even though MFA was being used. As I said earlier, this is not a novel threat. Real-time phishing has been around since the early 2000s when web-based MFA became a thing. Here's an article from Krebs on security. But we've upped our game on our side to make it really expensive to run. For example, if we see devices coming in from like a cloud IP space, maybe we'll throw more CAPTCHAs at them. And there's a lot of expensive automation that requires engineering knowledge to run those sort of post-attack scripts. Like you need to actually be an engineer, and engineers are expensive. And there's so many sites back then without MFA at all that you were sort of protected because there were just so many folks that had literally no protection. It wasn't even worth going after these folks. Well, for many of these issues, MFA is obviously ubiquitous. We saw that around the room. But AI has completely transformed the first and second. If you haven't seen, ChatGPT can easily solve any CAPTCHA within seconds. Most AI models can, local models can. This is like a solved problem. So CAPTCHAs really aren't expensive anymore for criminals to attack at scale. And then to write these post-compromise scripts, again, LLMs are really, really good at generating that style of code. You know, vibe coding for malicious actors is actually pretty productive, and they don't need to hire a bunch of folks and bring them into the criminal enterprise to get them to do this. The cost-benefit analysis of running this attack has never been lower, and so as a result, the bar is lowered substantially for this type of attack to be perpetrated on most websites and on most users. So let's look at MailChimp's situation. They did not offer any phishing-resistant MFA options. They had all the stuff that you all raised your hand about. You probably have the authenticator app. You're probably still rocking SMS messages. These are the things that most people implement and they think about when they're thinking about MFA. Even if Troy Hunt wanted to fix this and prevent this in the future, he has no option to do that. And that's exactly the problem with ignoring passkeys, is we're not even giving our most sensitive users that want to be secure the option of being secure. We're just kind of letting them take that risk, and there's really nothing that they can do about it once they're compromised. And that's sort of on us to change that. That's why we did MFA in the first place, by the way. So we just need to up our game. So there's two reasons this attack works. Number one is the users actually believe they are signing in. When they see that push notification or they're being asked to put in their one-time password, that's not abnormal to them. They're expecting to be signing in. So even push notifications are susceptible to this attack. And the second thing is we are leveraging the victim's device to complete an authentication on a different device, the attacker's device, in this case, their cloud infrastructure. So this is a failure of something called origin binding. We want to make sure that the secrets that we present to the website, they're happening on the origin that we expect. And so this lack of origin binding is endemic to most forms of authentication, like passwords. SMS is really terrible because you can just kind of call up T-Mobile and Vodafone, and if I know your mother's maiden name, I can just kind of get a clone of your SIM card and get all your text messages. Like, so those are out for sure. But all the OTP style codes, push notifications, even magic codes in email, and those backup codes where they're just sort of codes that let you in, these are all things that can be effectively phished from your end user and used in that auth reverse proxy. So what works? Well, there's only two that are available today that you can implement to avoid these types of attacks. The first is the magic link, which I'll talk about, and the second is Passkeys, which is driven by WebAuthn. These are protect against this attack because origin binding is actually possible with these two methods. So really quick primer on magic links, popularized by Medium in the early 2010s, repopularized by Slack in the mid-2010s. You get an email, you click a button or a link, and you're signed in. We don't see this as much anymore. We actually see more of the code. Why do we see the code over the link? Well, it turns out email sucks, And putting complex links in email actually fundamentally reduces their deliverability. The second is codes can actually be autofilled. Have you ever seen, like, if you get an email code, iOS will like helpfully suggest to input it for you. They do the same thing with SMS, which makes it nice. And the third is there's a lot of security enterprise software that will just rewrite links and break them. And then finally, this is one based on your implementation, link prefetching can actually cause the link to expire before it actually gets to the end user. So some security software will actually click the link, expire the code, and then they can't use it anymore. So these are all the reasons people use codes. They avoid them. You should not use codes anymore. Use links, get through these problems. These are solvable problems, and codes are fundamentally flawed, as we just saw. Here's a very basic magic link implementation using signed ID, which is a really great feature that I think was introduced in Rails 7. It was a feature that I think DHH introduced. Really, really easy to do this. The only two suggestions I have is use signed ID, use an expiration of an hour so you avoid the sort of expiring stuff. And the second thing is if the user ever changes their email, invalidate the links even if they do that within an hour. So always make sure encode into that purpose the email. And you can actually pass a hash into the purpose. It doesn't have to be just a string, which is really, really cool. And just check that on the other end when you're verifying it. This magic link plus this concept of a trusted device actually goes a long way. And you've probably encountered this when you've used apps like Discord or Steam. When you kind of sign in on your like uncle's computer at Thanksgiving because you're bored, like they will make you go through an extra step because this is a device that you haven't seen before. This is all something that you should be implementing, even if you don't implement passkeys as a result of this talk. Go in and make sure that when the user signs up or signs in, you are setting a cookie that allows you to identify that device in the future. If you don't see the cookie, make them go through the magic link flow every time until they've actually opted in to having the device be trusted, and then use the normal auth flow from there, which can be username, password, plus MFA, if they've opted into it. All right, let's get into passkeys. There's so many weird explanations about passkeys. I think I came up with the one that's the easiest for this group to understand. It's like an SSH key for web authentication. That's it. It's a private public key pair, and you present it to the website, and you're in. So what is this difference between passkey and WebAuthn? All WebAuthn is a protocol and an API that defines how the keys are created, used, and stored. So here's how it works. You have a website, which they call a relaying party. This could be your app. And you issue a challenge. Say, hey, we want to challenge this person who they say they are. Your browser gets that challenge, and then they farm out that challenge to what's called an authenticator on a specific origin or a domain. The authenticator is in charge of getting user verification that they actually want this auth to happen. That could be something like a Touch ID or putting in a local PIN or whatever. And then the authenticator signs the challenge, and the browser just sort of passes that along to the relaying party, the website. And then boom, you're in. That's it. That's how it works. So let's go back to our objective here. A lot of you are on that first bucket. We only are offering phishable factors. DHH tried to get to the last bucket. All I'm going to be advocating for is that middle one. That's where you all need to be, hopefully by the end of this year. Here's my pitch of why this isn't going to be an issue. Number one is we get a lot of visibility in passkeys, and we're on the FIDO Alliance, which invented them, and so we have a lot of visibility into the state of them. Google just reported that people with passkeys are 4 times more likely to be able to sign in. At 1Password, we just published how many passkeys that we see across all of our users in 2024. We're seeing millions of them. I think Google just published that they're seeing a similar number. There's millions of people. You saw earlier here, everybody here knows how to use passkeys. They're already using them. And 69% of the general population is saying that they're using at least one passkey. In this room, it was like 80 or 90%. So we know that passkeys aren't like this fringe thing anymore. Most people are familiar with what they are. Let's talk about authenticators. There's 2 types. There's platform authenticators. These are apps that live on your device, like 1Password, for instance. And the pros are they're easy to obtain and use. They're able to sync credentials across devices and platforms. The cons are the same thing. They are easy to obtain and use, and you're able to sync the credentials across devices and platforms, which fundamentally makes the device, if the device becomes compromised, these can become compromised. This is the same risk that you take when you use a password manager. So this is a known risk to us. This is the easiest way to get started with passkeys. The second type of passkey authenticators are called roaming authenticators. These are like the YubiKey hardware things where you kind of put them in the USB-C slot, you click a button, and then boom, you're in. These are great because they give you way higher security isolation. The device can be compromised, and these can actually withstand that. If your device gets wiped and you lose all your passkeys, these are sticking around like they're in the physical world. And the problem is that they're really hard to back up because they're physical hardware. And you can lose them, they can get damaged, they get water on them, and they're additional friction. They're not as fun to use. My suggestion is you let anybody register with whatever they want, and you encourage them, if they can put in an additional passkey, use the hardware one. So they have one for signing in normally, and if that one gets compromised or they lose it, they have the backup one, and that could be the hardware one, which most people won't use because they're not going to buy a roaming authenticator. So my favorite passkey implementation is GitHub's. And they really thought about everything. They thought about the sign-in experience. They've hoisted passkeys not just as an MFA factor, but as a way of actually signing in. And they have a great tactic to get people to actually use passkeys after they sign in for the first time. So their implementation really breaks down into several key points. The first is they treat passkeys as a sign-in method and a preferred MFA method. I'm only advocating for this room to just add it as an existing MFA. But once they've added it, it is safe to allow your users to sign in with the passkey and skip the entire rest of the MFA workflow. You can do that. That's allowed. Second piece is they tell you what passkeys you've used on the current device when you're looking at them. They'll also tell you which passkeys are ones that can be backed up versus ones that can't. And then when you sign in with your username and passkey, or password for the first time, they will ask you to upgrade to a passkey. And if you use old school FIDO2 UTF keys that are compatible passkeys, they'll actually upgrade them for you to being full-blown passkeys, which is really, really neat. And for our friends on Linux, Firefox is sort of still lagging behind here. They'll allow you to create passkeys on mobile devices from the desktop. So the desktop can actually induce a mobile device to create the passkey so you can finish that flow. This is becoming less important now because most people have a password manager on Linux. Omachi ships with 1Password by default. But if you don't have that, this is a great way of using passkeys with Linux, specifically with Firefox. Here's some resources. We definitely don't have time for me to write all the code for you to do, but it's really not too hard. These are all the things that I would look at. That last gem is the crux of the whole thing, WebAuth and Ruby. And we're really talking about just a couple hundred lines of code to get passkeys in. It's not as hard as that blog post would have led you to believe. Couple hints. First one is don't change your login form, but make sure on the username field you put that WebAuthn hint under autocomplete and put autofocus to true. And if they have a passkey, their authenticator will automatically prompt them to sign in right then and there. It's a really, really great experience. So make sure that if you do it there. You might be thinking, I don't want to add another JavaScript dependency. You don't need to anymore. As of March of this year, all of the browsers support all the native commands you need to make passkeys work right out of the box. I think Firefox was the laggard. Now we're all set. So there is no new JavaScript imports that you need to do to make passkeys work. Passkey implementation can be just as simple as what you're seeing on your screen right now. Here's some quick dev tips. I'll just call out a few of them. First is use the FIDO metadata gem. This will allow you to get the GUID, translate the GUID from the passkey into the vendor and what its capabilities are. That allows you to build a really, really great UI for your users. Don't just let them do one passkey. Let them do as many as they want. They're logging in on the mobile passkey flow. Suggest that they make a passkey right then for their desktop. Always allow them to make as many passkeys as they want. That's the beauty of them, is having a lot of them isn't really a big deal, especially if they're being synced all over the place, which they will be in most authenticators. And allow your administrators to require passkey auth for their subordinates, right? If you have a team-based app, allow them to make passkeys the only way that people are allowed to sign in so they can actually obtain most of the security benefits that we're talking about. All right, this one trips people up because everybody's like, but what about recovery? What about these damn codes? The codes are okay if we treat recovery as a separate, bespoke process. So never, ever, ever allow the backup codes to be in line with your normal MFA flow. Lots of people do this, and they say, hey, you don't have your authenticator app, just put in a paper code, you're fine. You can do that. Do not do that. That creates the phishability that we talked about. Make account recovery feel like a really, really big deal. Send an email out, maybe even have a cool-off period. Make it feel like there's no way an application would ever require me to do this, and it's very likely that an attacker will not think of it as the low-hanging fruit to hack into your application. And as soon as that account is recovered, you can imagine that they really have truly lost all of their access, so don't let them finish that recovery process until you establish new trust, have them generate a new passkey right then and there. Running low on time, so just really quickly to wrap up, there's some things that I just want you to think about outside of magic links and passkeys that are going to help save your bacon for these attacks. One of them is the lack of password reprompting. I mentioned in MailChimp, they were able to get in, use that session cookie, and just sort of blast through and get all the generate API keys and do all these sensitive actions. GitHub has a really great solutionist. They call it sudo mode. You should implement this to your apps. GitHub's sudo mode lets you do all the sensitive actions immediately after signing in, maybe require a re-authentication of MFA, even if they just signed in. Here's what a good sudo mode implementation looks like. Remember that sudo mode needs to be something that you just can call as a before action on anything in Rails, and make sure that you're saving off all the stuff that you may need to post to a form later. So in the session, get the path, the method, all the request parameters, and then as soon as they pass MFA, just like have a hidden form, resubmit all the post stuff, and then boom, they're in. The other thing is, I'm not saying passwords should go away, but you should make sure that the passwords that you have are of good quality. So here's some tools that you can use. This is an ancient gem called ZXCBN. It's from Dropbox. Gives you really, really great rules that you can have your users adhere to that aren't like the stupid rules, like put in an exclamation mark and all this stuff. They use dictionary attacks and things like that to brute force the password to make sure that it's safe. And the meter there is actually really good and gives folks really great recommendations. So make sure you have that. The second thing that I would recommend is a gem called Pwned. This actually uses Troy Hunt, you remember him earlier, Have I Been Pwned service, to make sure that when they put in a password, it's not a password that appears in a breach. You can actually take the entire database and have that locally, so you're never sending that password to the external API. Or they have this really cool thing called the K-anonymity model that allows you to take chunks of the password and send it to the service if you don't want to have the whole binary database live in your Rails app. If you all implement Passkeys, I highly encourage you to sign up for passkeys.directory, advertise the fact that you have passkey support. We have a voting section there. If your app is on there, that means there's a lot of people that wish your app had passkeys, and I would check it out and make sure that you're there. As always, I'm always going to plug the Rails security guide. Here are some resources for you to look at, and I hope that I changed your mind when it comes to passkeys. Thank you very much.